Okay, so you want to sell a painting. That's why you're here, but you're not sure how to price it. And I totally get it. I've been there before. I'm going to show you a little formula that I use, and I'm going to show some examples too, because it's not going to be just one number, plug it in, and that's it. There's other things you need to consider. So I'm going to give you that formula right away that I use, but it's something I use just as a base point, and then I kind of shift things based on some other factors. The formula is really simple. You can use a calculator if you need to, just to make sure that you're not messing it up. Basically, measure in inches the length and the height or width, depending on how you're looking at it. Measure one side and then the other side. Multiply those two numbers together, and that's your inches, remember, not centimeters. And then you're gonna multiply by, this is a number that's gonna fluctuate depending on the size of the piece, but also depending on your expertise. So we're gonna call it the expertise factor. So if you're a new artist and you know what, you think you have a long ways to go before you're an expert, then keep that number maybe at 1, maybe at 1.5, maybe at 2. So if we look at the 1, so we're gonna multiply whatever number we got times 1 by our expertise factor, we're gonna get the number that we could sell our piece at. That's the formula that I use. It's a basic formula. It fluctuates, like I said, depending on the size. So let's look at some different sizes. This is an 8 by 10. So if we're gonna stick with an expertise factor of 2, which is what I'm currently using, like I said, it fluctuates a little depending on the size. This piece would be $160 because I'd go 8 times 10. I have 80 square inches on here. So my square inches or my expertise factor is 2. So we say times 2 would be $160. I've actually priced this piece at $225 based on past sales that I've made and how much I believe that it could sell. So if you're looking at somebody's piece and you want to know what their expertise factor they've set, this is how you do it. You take the price that they have it posted at, you find out the dimensions of the piece in square inches. So we know that this is an 8 by 10, so that's 80. So I've set it at 225. So if we take 225, it sounds like we're doing a math lesson. And you know what? Actually, there's a lot of math in art sometimes. So we're going to go 225 divided by 80. And that's going to give us 2.8125. But don't worry about those extra, once you get past the 2 decimal marks, like don't worry too much about it. 2.8 is really what I'm looking at. All right, so this is closer to a 3 expertise. I must think pretty highly of myself, okay? I have some sales to back myself up for making that decision. So you have to go with your gut a little bit too. So I'm not just gonna stick to that formula and say, that is cut and dry formula, that's it. I'm also gonna consider the fact that I put it on a really nice canvas for the material and used good quality paint. And I've been doing this for a number of years now, so I feel like I can price that. So let's look at another piece to see how the factor works for smaller, and then we'll go larger. And I also want to show you smaller but different prices that seem to not make sense, okay? All right, small and mighty. Okay, this is a 4 by 4. So with our formula that I have, and remember we're sticking with the expertise factor of 2 or $2 per square inch. This is a 4 by 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. Okay guys, this took me probably 3 or 4 hours. So that means, you know, for 4 hours, $32. That does not, and materials too, right? That does not equate to something I feel good about selling my price for. This is actually $60, okay? $60 for this price, for this size. I'm feeling a bit better about the hours I spent on it at that price. That's something to consider. So after you do your formula, you gotta consider, wait a second, how much time did I spend? What would that be hourly? That is something that I think about as well. Because if I give this for $20 or $32, I'm gonna have this sick feeling like I am never going to be able to survive in this world, especially as inflation has just gone skyrocketed. So that's the same. And you know what? Sometimes what I do is I then say, okay, my 4x4s are this such and such price. And then I I make it in the future, I think about that and I'm like, hey, this is going to be 60 or 65. I want to keep around that price point. So when I'm selling at a market or selling online, it's a bit easier for my customers to see, oh, hey, I want a 4x4 piece and it's going to be around that 65 point. That's another thing to consider though. Commissions. Commissions should be more than what you're selling your pieces that you create from home. I want to show you guys another 8x10 that is totally priced differently. This one here that I created a few years back is priced at, take a guess, $40. That's an expertise factor of 0.5, not times 2, okay? The reason for that is it didn't take me very long to make this painting. It was also an experimental painting. I was trying out a new tool for the first time, but I still like it and I still think it has value. I just don't think it has the same value as the first piece I showed you. If you look at it, this one is on a cheaper canvas, so that makes it worth less because the canvas was less expensive, the materials were less expensive. I used less paint, it took me less time. It is the same size, but this one is $225 and this one is $40, okay? So there are things to consider, right? And then if I have a painting for a very long time at the same price and it's not selling, I might want to consider reducing my price, maybe. Or maybe I just don't have a large enough network of people who have seen the piece to sell it. So I might just hang on to it, keep that price point. And sometimes when you undersell your piece, people see that you've put it at a low value. They're, why is this so low? It must not be worth much to you. So actually, sometimes you can undersell your pieces and you're undervaluing yourself. So be careful not to do that. Ultimately, you have to feel good about the price you're selling it to. I think about, what would I feel good from what I've put into this to give it to somebody? Like, what price can I exchange this for? That is a factor that matters. That's what I use. So let's look at some smaller pieces and see if it works as well. This one here is a 6x6. So 6 times 6 is 36. Multiply that by 2 if that's my expertise factor or square inches structure. Then, by the way, expertise factor is not a technical, that's just something I'm using right now. Like a collector would not know what you're talking about if I said my expertise factor. Just thought I'd let you know that. That's just something I'm using for this video to make sense of it. And I think maybe it could be used though. I like it. So what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. So I'm gonna use my calculator and see. We go 6 times 6 is 36, times 2 is 72. This took me quite a while. There's a lot of detail in this piece. And to me, $72 isn't quite right for it. I've actually priced this at $150, and a lot of my 6x6s are priced at that price point. I don't want to undervalue my time, the effort, the materials. This is on a nice thicker canvas, and I paint the edges nicely and I varnish them at the end once they're completely dry to protect it. So that's another step that takes time and costs money. And so $150. Now this one here is an 11 by 14. So 11 by 14 is 154 times 2 is 308. As I get larger, I'm going to stick a little closer to that 2 and maybe even drop it down a little bit. So this one I actually have at 325, and I have my 11 by 14s of this particular series that are all kind of landscape or still life-esque at that 325 mark. Okay, let's see if my formula works for larger scale paintings. Let's look at this piece back here. It's actually not finished, but it's a 36 by 36 inch. So if we try our formula with this, we go 36 by 36, calculate that, and that is 1,296 inches. So if you were at a $1 per square inch, if your expertise factor was 1, then you would sell this for 1,296. If that feels like too high, well, this is pretty large. You have to consider the cost of materials, people. This is not a cheap canvas to buy. If somebody had to go buy this canvas, then all the years of expertise of you painting, there's a lot. There's layers. Okay, if I'm doing my times 2, that's $25.92, $2,592. When I look at that, I think that's probably not going to sell at that price residentially. So I'm thinking when I go bigger to reduce lower than that 2 expertise. My 2 is my regular for like normal size. Go larger, maybe bring it down a little bit if my subject matter is staying fairly similar, not more complicated. If you're getting more complicated, you want more complex, oh, I want my whole family in there, I want this and that, then you're gonna have to maybe increase that expertise factor. Let's call it not just expertise, it's also complicated factor. So I keep it at 1.5 at this time. Hopefully that will improve over time as I improve my skills, as I level up, so can my expertise factor. So I'm gonna keep it at 1.5. So as I'm working on this, I'm thinking about it too, sometimes, not always, but a little bit. This at a $1.5 per square inch, or your expertise factor of 1.5, would be $1,944. So I'm actually happy with that price point. I'm going to keep it at that price point because if you want to get gallery representation, they're going to take 50% commission. So you're only getting 50% of the price you posted at. So if you're hoping to get into a gallery, that's a whole other level here. But if you are undervaluing your pieces, let's say you're like, no, I only want to sell for 1,000 because I'll be happy to get 1,000. I'll feel good about that. But if a gallery's taking 500 from that, are you going to feel good about making this piece for 500? Are you going to feel like getting up and painting, going into your studio every day and painting for that? Possibly not. And maybe you're just painting for the love of painting. And hopefully you are painting for the love of painting, but we also need to survive. So we also want to keep our value up. Like, we want to make sure we're not just undervaluing ourselves and the effort that we're putting in. Well, I hope this has helped you figure out how to price your pieces. And I know that that factor is going to be a little bit hard for you to determine. Basically, I understand that it's not easy and you'd almost rather just get $20 than nothing. But I just encourage you to really show people that you have set value to your work, that you recognize that you do have something of value to offer somebody, that maybe it's not going to be $1,000 for a small piece at this point, but don't sell yourself too short. I encourage you to, look, if you want to come to me and get my opinion on it, I'm happy to assess your work and help you out with that. In the description, I will leave a link to my one-on-one sessions that I offer through Skillshare. You can take a personalized art lesson with me, or you can take a portfolio review with me. Join me for an hour, half an hour, and let's look at your work, and I can help you figure out what that expertise value might be. But ultimately, it's going to be one of those things that maybe one person's going to see a lot of value in your work and other people aren't. And you just have to remember, those aren't your people, okay? There's some people that want an original work of art. They don't understand the value of it. So I just need you to kind of be strong, find some support, find someone that supports you in what you're doing. Maybe that can be me. Maybe I can help support you in some way. Let's connect. Connect with me on Instagram. And hopefully you can feel more confident in going out there and putting a price to your piece that doesn't make you feel like you're undervaluing yourself. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video has helped. If it did, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'll check them out and I'll get back to you. Have a wonderful day. Let's get your art out there. Let's get your first piece sold. And when you do, I want to hear about it. Thanks. See you next time.